Hey, welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show. I hope y'all had a great holiday weekend. Happy Independence Day. If you missed our Independence Day show, I highly recommend you head on over and find that in the YouTube archives. It's also on Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. On Independence Day, what we did, we talked about the forgotten heroes of the American Revolution, from Deborah Sampson to there were all kinds of them. Peter Salem. Be sure to go check that out because it was a very patriotic show. We've got a lot to get to today. I want to get to the 68 dead in Texas floods. Now, that number is climbing. So this is just a truly tragic thing that happened over the weekend, really. The media is, of course, blaming Donald Trump for this. I don't know how it's truly disgusting. This tragic death toll is climbing, and they're politicizing the heartbreak here. The waters haven't even rescinded yet, and they're trying to pin this natural disaster, this natural event, on Donald Trump and his administration already. So we're going to be talking about that, plus an untold story. Really, this was a story of a hero. And you probably won't see it on CNN. This is some of these stories are popping up, and we're going to report on this guy who saved a woman from a tree in these floods. So we're going to get to that. We are praying for the victims, for the families who are grieving, and that 68 number, I think it's going to continue to climb. There's 41 missing already yesterday. Governor Greg Abbott had reported that there were 10 who died. So that number is already continuing to climb. So we're going to get to that. Plus, the New York City, not a communist, Zohran Mamdani, he has been exposed, okay, because he has a plan where he wants to seize private property, okay, and build communes. So the left has already tried to do this before. It was very unsuccessful. That was Chaz in Seattle during the 2020 BLM riots. Hilarious. They tried to farm and build their own little commune, and yeah, it was pathetic. They planted like little tiny tomato plants, and they just sat there and stared like it was going to grow. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the communist, not a communist, because the fact checkers will fact check me. Rolling Stone made it very clear that he's not a communist. He's just a socialist, all right? So we're going to get to Zohran here. And here in Chicago, they shut down the streets for a NASCAR race. $5 million for the NASCAR scam is what I'm going to be calling it. And Chicago shut down the streets. Meanwhile, we have a real racetrack that NASCAR used to use, Joliet, and it's just sitting there rotting. Nobody's using it. So we're going to get to that because I think it's a waste of taxpayer dollars to be throwing at this Chicago race when there's a racetrack that's perfectly capable. I don't watch NASCAR. I do watch Formula One. I watched that over the weekend. It was a pretty decent race. There's more than right turns, I guess, in Formula One, which is why I watch it. It's European, and I hate that part of it, but I don't know. I like the cars way more than NASCAR, and I think that there's definitely more diversity when it comes to the tire compounds and things like that. So I watched that over the weekend. I had a great weekend. I really celebrated our national freedom. I also celebrated my spiritual freedom at church yesterday. So I had a fantastic weekend. Let me know how your weekend was in the comments section. Let's get to the tragedy in Texas, because I'm sure you're wondering what's going on. The death toll is continuing to climb. Yet leftist politicians and mainstream media, they have wasted zero time politicizing this issue and blaming Donald Trump for a natural disaster. Okay, this is a natural disaster, and they're politicizing the heartbreak, and they're pinning the blame on Trump and his administration. They blame everything from the Doge cuts to the National Weather Service budget being reduced. Now, and NOAA, so the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, so NOAA. So most of those cuts, I want to point out, haven't happened yet. Okay, everybody's saying, oh, it's the Doge cuts. It was the National Weather Service. All the cuts to the National Weather Service is what caused this to be so unpredictable. That's not true. They did make their predictions. The National Weather Service did. And their predictions wouldn't have changed despite them being funded extra, right? Despite them having gobs of taxpayer dollars thrown at them. It really doesn't change their predictions much. What we're talking about with the National Weather Service cuts that haven't really been implemented yet, what we're talking about is cuts to the bureaucrats, okay? The people who don't actually make those predictions, the people who are sitting in an office, pencil pushing. The DEI hires the directors who oversee a director, who oversee a director, oversee a director. So the layers of bureaucratic bloat are what are being cut from the National Weather Service. We're not talking about the people who look at the skies, who look at the Doppler. We're not looking at those types of people. Okay, we're looking at the people who are bureaucrats, and we're cutting those. So the second Trump administration, I love this because they are a totally different animal. They are not taking anything lying down. They are not taking the mainstream media's lies. So they blasted the mainstream media in a series of posts last night and accused the biased press of outright just lying. And they provided facts, and they fact-checked really all of the mainstream media who said, oh, the reason why the predictions were off is because, the cuts to National Weather Service and the Doge cuts. Not true. None of that's true because none of that's really been implemented, number one. Number two, like I said, the cuts are for bureaucrats within those organizations, NOAA, NWS. Those are for the bureaucrats, so not the people who are actually making the predictions. Number three, cuts to even the people who are making the predictions. I don't think that's really going to affect the prediction all that much. Even if the cuts were happening, okay, maybe less people to get out the warnings, but that's not what happened here. DHS, they tweeted this out. The mainstream media is deliberately lying about the events leading up to the catastrophic flooding in Texas. The National Weather Service did execute timely, precise forecasting and warnings. Unpredicted rainfall overwhelming the region. That's what a lot of their warnings had said was, hey, there's going to be unprecedented rainfall. Sorry, I said unpredicted. It's early in the morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. So there's a timeline that's posted here on the tweet from the DHS. So they walk you through all of the warnings of the unprecedented rainfall overwhelming the region, and to seek shelter and to get out of specific flood zones. So there are several posts by the department proving that the National Weather Service, did send out multiple warnings, numerous. I mean, I'm looking here at least 12 about the potential dangers ahead, and it all started prior to the flooding, the height of the flooding. It all started like a day prior to any of the rainfall. So the National Weather Service did actually do its job. So the National Weather Service, this is what the DHS said, executed timely, precise forecasting warnings despite unprecedented rainfall overwhelming the region. The agency also provided a timeline of the National Weather Service's proactive response. So this was a proactive warning, several of them, to the storm beginning on Thursday morning. Okay, so the National Weather Service provided over 12 hours of advance notice via flood watch and over 3 hours ahead of lead time of flash flood warnings. So 12 hours in advance, they said, hey, we're on a flood watch prior to the storm, prior to the unprecedented rain. And then 3 hours before the storm even came, they were issuing flash flood warnings. And then they escalated alerts as the storm intensified. Okay, so before a single raindrop, 12 hours in advance, they were saying, hey, there's going to be flood warning or flood watch. They were under flood watch. much. Then 3 hours before even a raindrop fell, they were saying, hey, flash flood warnings. So this is an awful story. I am completely heartbroken. I can't imagine the pain that these parents are going through who lost those girls. Camp Mystic, it was like 20-something girls who went missing. They're trying to find them. I can't imagine what the families of these victims are going through at this time. There's going to be investigations. There's going to be reports. There's going to be studies done on how we could better predict, obviously, an unprecedented rainfall in Texas like this. And maybe it could have been prevented. But right now is not the moment for conjecture, especially when it's uncorroborated and these are theories and these are unfounded allegations, especially Doge cuts and NWS defunding. That hasn't even really happened yet. And, money isn't necessarily correlated with decent predictions. The more money you throw at something doesn't mean that it's going to get better. Look at our public education system. We throw more money than anybody else, any of our neighboring states, the state of Illinois, at public education, and our kids can't read at grade level or do math at grade level. So it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. You got to have qualified people in the National Weather Service, not these DEI type hires, okay? And we have to cut the bureaucratic bloat so that way we can pay the predictors, the people who actually are reading the skies and are, doing their weather thing. I'm not a weather nut or another weather nerd. I don't really know how, all of that happens. But we got to be paying our scientists and the people who are qualified to be there. We got to be paying them, and we can't be doing that, paying them well, if we're dishing out all kinds of taxpayer dollars to the directors who don't do anything. Okay, so blaming the Trump administration for cuts that supposedly kneecapped our warning system is a complete fool's game because, as the DHS points out, the warnings went out. They went out very timely. I don't know how much timelier you could get. They predicted it 12 hours before a single raindrop fell. That was pretty quick. And, there's some questions, obviously, that should be answered as to what happens next, how we can go about preventing this, or if you can, to a degree. I think that there is just, hey, this is a natural disaster, right? The media should stop throwing around these baseless lies. I mean, really, it's speculation when the waters haven't even really receded yet. They're throwing around speculation and lies that this was due, but there was warnings that went out. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're totally lying to you because they're saying that the NWS is defunded and that's why they weren't able to get their predictions out fast enough. But they did go out fast, and there were plenty of them prior to a single raindrop falling. The Utah GOP Senator Mike Lee, he said something to say about it, and I'm agreeing with him. These are not journalists. These are activists. Americans know this more now than ever. Yeah, now more than ever. Yeah, we know that these mainstream media people are not serious people. I do want to get to kind of a light amidst all this darkness. The first responders, they are still hard at work looking for missing people. And there's rescue efforts that are underway after this horrendous flooding that has gone on in Texas. And there were reports, I want to make sure we clear this up. There were reports that there were 2 girls that were rescued from a tree, 2 little girls. That was widely reported, and it's false. So the local paper who had originally reported it, they retracted the story and said it was unfortunately not true. So those 2 little girls did not get rescued from that tree. But there were rescues, and I want to talk about specifically one today. But the DHS head, Kristi Noem, praised one of the rescuers, and you'll probably hear his name a lot today in the news. He's really a hero. He's a member of the Coast Guard, and she said that this hero had been involved in saving at least 165 lives. This is just one rescuer. I'll get to his name here in just a second, but The United Cajun Navy was helping. The Texas National Guard was helping. I think people are responding. I don't think that we're not dealing with a natural disaster where there was no response, like East Palestine, Ohio, and the train derailment. There was no response there from the Biden administration. There's an actual response going on here, and people are collaborating. The Texas National Guard was there. They saved a lot of people. They evacuated some stranded campers. So there were people who were camping in Texas, and the floods came, and they were kind of stranded once the water came, and the Texas National Guard rescued a large group of young girls who were at a camp near Caryville, Texas. So these are heroes who are saving lives. This is truly incredible. I want to watch this clip here, and then we're going to watch a few of these from the storm, because I do want you to see how fast this happened. I mean, this was a very quick rainfall. And then we're going to get to Carl Jeter, who winds up saving a woman from a tree. I'll get to that video here, but let's take a look at this. So those are the girls that they're evacuating from the camp. So there is a response going on. That's why I wanted to show you this morning, is that there's a response. Now this man is saving a woman who treaded water for 20 miles. Okay, so there was water and she was treading water for 20 miles. She wound up in a tree. We're going to take a look at this. Here we go.
A story of heroism and a miracle, truly. Tell me, Carl.
True miracle. There's no other way to explain it.
You heard her screaming.
I did. We had gone away from the house for a little while because we were afraid the water was coming in our house. And I waited till it was stabilized, and I knew, so I waded back over. I came up on the deck, and she saw me, so she started to scream out loud. And I thought she was in the water going down the river, and I finally looked and was able to spot her in the tree. And so, I began to holler back to her, hey, I see you, we'll get you help. And I called 911, waited about 20 minutes, nobody showed up, and I got in my vehicle, drove down the road to where I knew there were going to be authorities, and I found a DPS agent, and he then videoed or called in and sent some folks over here, but it still took a while. So
they brought a boat.
They did. We had a little bullhorn. We were hollering back and forth at her to let her know, hey, you just hang on, because she was desperate. I mean, desperate. And then
you learned she came all the way from Hunt Ingram?
After they were able to pluck her out, we brought her into our house and gave her a shower.
All right. So truly incredible stuff. This guy, his name's Carl Jeter. He went out onto his balcony when he heard a woman screaming nearby. At first, he had thought she was in the floodwaters, and then he realized that she was sitting up in this tree, hanging on for dear life. Now, think about this: treading water for 20 miles. That's what this woman did in these floodwaters, and she had to avoid things like RVs, refrigerators, things like that. And she was treading this water. She had been camping 20 miles away from that tree. Now, Carl's son, Josh Jeter, said that the boat showed up to help. So there were multiple teams that also showed up. The Swiftwater Rescue, they showed up. The Texas Parks and Wildlife people showed up with boats, and then they launched the boats into the water to try to get her out of the tree and rescued. So she was cut, she was bruised, but other than that, no physical injuries. And the Jeter family took her into their home, wrapped her up in blankets, and gave her some TLC, some tender love and care. So one of the reasons this flood was so problematic, and I want to get to this clip, it's going to shock you how quickly these waters rose. So like I said, before a raindrop even happened, the National Weather Service had issued warnings about floods 12 hours before the rain. But once the rain hit, It just came down. Now, 3 hours before the rain hit, they issued flash flood warnings, the National Weather Service. So there was warning. I want to be clear that there was warning, and there is a response. And I'll get to this. It's just, this is a natural disaster, and these things happen, and we have just got to pray, pray, pray. Now, what you're going to see here in this video is the Guadalupe River, and you can see the difference from the start of the video to the end of the video, how the water just rises, and it's just the rain that comes down. At the start of the video, you'll see, the difference between the water levels and how it ultimately covers up this bridge. So look at the bridge. I'm going to share this with you. Look at the bridge, and then look at the start of the video and the end of the video. Let's take a look. Here we go. Okay, so you can see that this little ridge right here, where that gray bridge is at the start of the video, you saw the water come in. And by now, and I won't play the entire video, it's 3 minutes long, but you'll see this bridge ultimately get covered by this water. It's taking down trees in its path. So one of the reasons why this flooding is so problematic is how quickly the water rose. And you can see that very clearly in this video. So Larry Letha of Kerr County, so he's the Kerr County Sheriff in Texas Hill Country, said 68 people had died in flooding in his county. So in his county, the epicenter, this is where the flooding really took place. And among those 68 people, 28 children died. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, speaking at a press conference yesterday afternoon, said that 10 more had died elsewhere in Texas because of the rain and the flash flooding. And he also said that 41 on top of that were missing. So I'm looking at 78 dead, 41 missing in Texas. There's probably even more. That number is just going to probably continue to climb tragically. This is really sad. Really sad stuff. This is serious stuff. So serious tragedy calls for serious prayer. There is a story in the Bible. It's tucked in Genesis chapter 7 that I want to talk about today. It's about a flood. It's not just a heavy rain or a swollen river like we just saw, but it's a flood so vast that it covered the entire earth. God warned Noah, gave him time to build an ark. When the storm hit, only those who had listened were saved. Today, Texas we're not facing a worldwide flood. Texas isn't facing that. But 68 families, 28 children, it kind of feels like that, right? It kind of feels like a world. 68 people, 28 of them children. So a woman clung to a tree. We saw her 20 miles from where she was. She was swept away because of the current. The Coast Guard has rescued 165 souls, 165 people. Campers, they were pulled from danger by brave men and women of the Texas National Guard. So the Coast Guard's working together, the Texas National Guard. The waters have not really rescinded, but before the waters even rescind, they started finger pointing. Okay. the mainstream media, they started finger pointing and blaming Donald Trump, the administration, for making budget cuts to National Weather Service, which they haven't even taken effect, by the way. And the media, like modern day Pharisees, they didn't wait to find out who was hurting and why. They pounced. They didn't do any of the coverage of, they're, kind of doing these stories about people being saved. But really, they're pouncing and they're politicizing this. And it's just really sad. Blaming President Donald Trump. They're blaming the funds, the lack of funding to NOAA, to the NWS, National Weather Service. And I love what Senator Mike Lee said. He said, these people are not journalists, they're activists. So the moment stuff like this happens, your gut as a journalist should be, hey, what's the response look like? And how can really, you should be asking yourself, how can we assist the public in knowing who's alive, who's not, who's missing, who's not? That's really what they should be doing right now, and doing these stories with these families, talking with the families, seeing if they've found their loved ones yet. That's what they should be doing. But the DHS gave us receipts, thank God, time-stamped with the alerts, with the forecast, with the flash warnings, and they were given, the people of Texas were given hours, 12 hours notice, 3 hours prior to the 3 hours prior to the rainfall. They said that there was going to be flash flooding. So the National Weather Service did do its job. They warned people, but still lives were lost. And you probably want to know why. Wait a second. Why? Everybody did their job. The DHS is out there responding. Texas National Guard, the Coast Guard. We might not fully ever know. Then on this side of heaven, the Bible tells us in Matthew chapter 5, verse 45, the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. This is in Matthew chapter 5. Not every disaster is a judgment. Not every storm is a sign of failure. Sometimes the flood just comes because we live in an imperfect world. And that's not the end, though. That's the beauty of this. And this should really be what the journalists are doing, is saying, hey, this isn't the end of this story where the flood just comes and wipes everybody out. But that's not the end of the story. The waters rise, but God is still working. He's stirring the hearts of the Coast Guard men, Coast Guardsmen, the Cajun Navy members, volunteers, men like Carl Jeter, who rushed to this woman's aid. She was screaming, and he's, an elderly man, but it didn't matter. He was on the balcony, he heard her screaming, and he rushed to her aid. He called his son, hey, we got to get these boats in the water, we got to grab her. She was high up in a tree, she was battered, she was terrified, but she was alive. And instead of ignoring her, instead of filming for social media, guess what? He went out and he saved her, despite probably not being super qualified. He looked like an elderly man. This is the America I know. And that's the faith I stand on. You see, the ark wasn't just a boat. It was a picture of salvation, of a God who prepares a way through the storm. Okay, so, and friends, the real tragedy here isn't the storm. It's that these voices in the mainstream media, they're trying to hijack pain for political gain. And the people who are standing on rooftops screaming, they're not covering that. It's the people who are standing on rooftops screaming that they should be covering, and they should be covering the pain and trying to assist the public in finding their loved ones. And at this moment, that's what the journalists should be doing, instead of blaming President Donald Trump and cuts that haven't even taken effect yet, Doge cuts and National Weather Service cuts. And by the way, funding doesn't equate more or better results as far as predictions go. We know that, look at our public education system. We know that when you throw a ton of money at something, it doesn't necessarily equate better outcomes. Okay, so the book of Isaiah tells us, they're, and I want to make this clear, the mainstream media is hijacking pain for political gain. And really what they should be doing is building boats, showing more stories like this one, where this guy saved this woman, and interviewing families and trying to figure out who's missing and who's not. And they should be assisting the public. That's the way their coverage should be right now. So the book of Isaiah says, when you pass through waters, I will be with you, and through rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. It says Isaiah, it's in Isaiah 43, verse 2. That's a promise, not from Washington, not from Noah, but from God. Okay, so when you pass through waters, I will be with you, God. And through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. And today, as Texas mourns, that promise still holds. Let's pray for the families, for the missing, for the hurting, and let's thank God for these rescuers, for every soul who, is being saved by these rescuers. I think it's like a total of 165 so far, and that number continues to grow along with that death toll. But just continue to pray. Don't let the media rewrite this narrative. And let me offer you a gentle reminder. When Noah closed the door of the ark, he wasn't taking questions from reporters. Okay. He was trusting God. So that's what you just need to block out all that noise, Texas, block out the mainstream media, because they're going to try to politicize your gain or your pain. For their political gain. They're going to try to politicize it. So I want to get to Zohran here in just a couple of seconds. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'll get to some of your chats. The owner of Camp Mystic is one of the dead/missing, according to the reports. It's really sad. So there has been a lot of social media posts. I haven't really even seen the mainstream talk about Camp Mystic. This was a Christian, I believe it was a girls' camp, but tons of young girls missing, and they're on the search for a lot of these young girls. But the owner of the camp, I did not know that, apparently either dead or missing. Continue to pray. I'd like to ask the liberals a question. What agency or dollar amount would have stopped this? Yeah. It doesn't matter how many billions you throw at something. It's not going to prevent a natural disaster. Okay. Like I said, scripture tells us, Matthew 5, verse 45 says, the rain falls on the just and unjust alike. So sometimes there is judgment. I won't say that. There is judgment in disasters, but not every storm is a sign of failure. Sometimes, being that we live in a world full of sin and an imperfect world, the flood just comes. So yeah, no dollar amount is going to stop this. And like I said, the cuts haven't even happened yet, Ryan. It's like these people are saying, oh, the cuts to National Weather Service. Okay, I know some people who work at the National Weather Service, and they actually are people who predict the weather outcomes and do the actual predictions. And there's a lot of science that goes into it. But there's a lot of people who sit at home and bark orders at people, and they're the director of a director of a director of a director, and they don't really have a job that they do. They're just waste of taxpayer dollars. So those are the types of people that we're getting out of there. So that way we can pay, because the people who predict the storms, the people who are doing the actual work, they don't get paid nearly as much as the bureaucrats at the tippity top. And what Donald Trump is doing with those cuts is we're getting rid of the people at the tippity top who don't actually do the work. So that way we can pay the people more who do the actual work. This is a model. Like, it's all the BBB, the One Big Beautiful Bill. It's all almost like a symbolic gesture, but it's not symbolic because it's actually happening. It's a gesture that says, hey, we reward people who work and do an actual job. So everybody that I graduated with, they wound up in like these consulting careers or PR, public relations, or they wound up being like directors of directors, or like there's like 700 directors, where this one girl I went to college with, she's a director of something, but there's like 700 directors of this at this consulting group she works at in Chicago. And it's just like, okay, back up a second. what is it you actually do here? Right? So Donald Trump's whole like model is, hey, blue collar work. Hey, people who are actually doing the work, we're going to make sure that we reward you and we don't reward government dependency. Now, let's get to Zohran. Speaking of government dependency, let's talk about Zohran, I don't know, Mamdani. He is got quite the paper trail here because he says out loud with his mouth what his plans are. Is not communist plan, because God forbid you call him a communist, otherwise Rolling Stones is going to fact check you. But he out loud his not communist plan. He wants to convert private property into government communes. Okay, so yes, in New York City, I know that you know how this is going to turn out, the communes. Okay, if they were to take private property from people and turn them into government communes, I think we pretty much can guess how that's going to turn out. This is a trust fund baby. He went to a private school. This is Zohran Mamdani, and he thinks that he's from a third world country, third world, and he's really not. Okay, he claims he's from a third world, and eats rice with his hands. Did you guys see that clip? Now, to be clear, this is not a communist idea, taking away private property from people and turning them into government communes, according to the independent fact checkers, the mainstream media, and Rolling Stones. Rolling Stone, sorry, I keep saying Rolling Stones. I like the pen. Rolling Stone. This is the magazine. They'll fact check me probably on this. They say he's not a communist, okay? He's not in the country illegally. He has no connection to 9/11 or jihadist terrorism. Mamdani, he hasn't said a single anti-Semitic thing. Shame on you for saying that. He did not call to globalize the Intifada. He is not a communist. This is what Rolling Stone said. Look, Zohran has said out loud with his mouth, in his own words, it came out of his mouth, and we're going to get to this, that he wants to take private property away from people and turn them into government communes. And apparently Zohran has said that he's a socialist, not a communist. I'm guessing because communist doesn't pull very well. When you come out and you proclaim yourself to be a communist, that doesn't really pull well. So he has said that I'm a socialist, not a communist. So we are going to get to this video. I'm going to take a quick break. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. We're going to get to this video of Zohran Mamdani. Reminder, he's not a communist, okay? But he also has a lot of people, or a lot of support from people who do proclaim to be communist, by the way. We're going to get to CNN poll who exactly supports Zohran, the Zohran, and we're also going to get to the clip of him out loud with his mouth talking about how he wants to take private property away from individuals and build communes. Now, they've tried to do this before, the communists. You guys remember Chaz? I think this was in Seattle, 2020 BLM riots. They actually tried running one of these communes in the city, and it didn't work out so well. So we're going to pull the receipts on that. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we don't tiptoe. No. We stomp with the facts. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're talking about immigration, not the fairy tale version, but the real story. So buckle up. Let's rewind. Yes, America is a nation of immigrants, sure. But guess what else? We're a nation of laws. Okay, so from the get-go, we welcomed immigrants, folks who played by the rules, brought their skills, worked hard, and wanted to become an American and participate in our culture here, not just use America. So for over 200 years, we had rules, a process. You applied, you waited, and you earned your place. That's not xenophobia. That's order, by the way. And then enter in the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. That was a big turning point. It ditched the merit-based entry and it opened the floodgates for chain migration. This is where you, your grandkids, and your grandkids' dog and cousin can come over just because you're here. Okay, from there, it was a race to be the most compassionate. Okay, who could be the most compassionate? And the Democrats raced to create legislation and tried to virtue signal that they were the most compassionate, aka compassionate means reckless. Okay, so fast forward to 2021, under the Biden administration, it was a full-on border circus, over 8 million illegal border crossings, 2.4 million in just 2023 alone under Joe Biden's watch. Entire cities were being overwhelmed. Remember Springfield, Ohio. And instead of fixing it, the left is just handing out hotel rooms, driver's licenses here in the state of Illinois, health insurance, coverage, and voting rights. There was an actual immigrant. I forget where he was from. I think he was a Venezuelan immigrant or something. He got to vote in the Chinese. He was a Chinese national and he got to vote in our elections. And it's just like we're throwing this out like candy at a parade for all of these illegal immigrants. And, who's paying for all of this? You are. Taxpayers are footing the bill. The housing, the healthcare costs, and American vets, meanwhile, are sleeping under bridges. And middle-class families can't afford eggs. Okay, so let's not forget about the security crisis either. Okay, because that's a big part of this as well. Terror watch lists, encounters were at record highs. Fentanyl was pouring over the border, flooding the border. And the cartels were alive and well under the Biden administration. They were thriving under Joe Biden's open door policy. But sure, let's talk about humanitarian values. Kids are being trafficked over the border by smugglers. And, this is the most humanitarian thing to do. Give me a break. The future, it's on the line. Because either we enforce our laws or we lose the meaning of citizenship altogether. And that's what the left's ultimate goal is to hell with sovereignty, to hell with citizenship. Immigration can be good if it's legal and it's controlled and it's fair immigration. But here comes the other turning point. So in 1965, we had a turning point, and that's where everybody was just starting to race to be the most compassionate, aka everybody was just being reckless. But Trump 2025, this is another turning point. So he is, not just talking about a wall, but he is talking about a hammer. He's come down with his border czar, Tom Homan. Under the Trump administration's new immigration plan, he promised to deliver the largest, and he has, deportation operation in U.S. history. And we're talking about detention centers, fast track removals. That guy who threatened Donald Trump to assassinate him, he was an illegal immigrant, came into the country 9 times illegally, broke into the country 9 times between 1998 and I think it was 2005. Boy. So the left is going to cry racism. We know this, but Trump's plan is really about this sovereignty. Okay, not skin color. It's about sovereignty and having a nation with borders. Really what the left wants is to do away with sovereignty. Donald Trump reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. He ended Biden's abusive asylum loopholes. And you want to come here? Great, do it legally. And you got to be, even legal immigrants have got to want to be American. Okay, they've got to want to conform to the culture. And we can't take anymore, okay? We just can't. The blue state mayors are even screaming, we can't take anymore because it's a strain on our resources, and we really have to be selective now with our immigration. This has been Conservative Cat Clips, reminding you that borders are not racist. They're responsible. Laws don't make you cruel. They make you civilized. Let's fix immigration. Let's do it the American way, the legal way, orderly and fair. Hey, good morning. Welcome back to Conservative Cat. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. he's not a communist. Okay, don't say that he's a communist. Zohran Mamdani, the Rolling Stone, they of course have fact checked. They say Mamdani is not here in the country illegally. Mamdani is not here, or hasn't said anything that's anti-Semitic. He's not a communist, and he didn't call to globalize the Intifada. Now, I don't have a video of him saying globalize the Intifada or I hate the Jews, but we do have a video of him talking about how he wants to seize private property and create government communes. Okay, but I do also have this video of CNN. People who sympathize with him. He tends to get a lot of support from people who do say things like globalize the Intifada and I hate the Jews. Take a listen.
Andrew Cuomo, during the primary, attacked Mamdani as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not quite sure the former governor understood how much the politics have changed around this issue among Democrats. What are we talking about here? All right, who Democrats sympathize more with, Israelis or Palestinians? In 2017, the Democratic Party was a pro-Israeli party. Look at this. They sympathized with the Israelis by 13 points, more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. But look at the sea change. Now Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians by 43 points. Oh my God, that is a change in the margin of 56 points over the course of just 8 years. So all of a sudden, it's the pro-Palestinian position that actually reigns supreme in Democratic politics, not the Israeli position. And that is part of the reason why Mamdani was able to do so well in this primary, because those attacks over Israel, simply put, did not ring true for Democrats. They're now on the side of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.
I mean, this is a much bigger issue, specifically with Mamdani, though. I mean, an outspoken critic of Israel. He's facing continued criticism, though, for not being outspoken enough against anti-Semitism, that is for sure. But on this, what is it? Talk about Democrats and how broadly how this really is shifting.
Yeah. So, you see this among Democrats overall, right? But we know that Mamdani's base was younger voters within the Democratic Party. And so I want to break it down
with younger Democrats.
Correct. So take a look here. Who age 18 to 49 Democrats sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Again, in 2017, younger Democrats sympathized more with the Israelis by 14 points. Look at this shift now. Palestinians, they sympathize more with the Palestinians by 57 points. That is an over 70-point shift in the margin in just a matter of 8 years. So the bottom line is Mamdani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed tremendously on this issue in 8 years' time. I rarely ever see shifts like this, Kate, in which you see one side of the equation leading by 14 points 8 years ago, and then all of a sudden the other side of the equation leading by 57 points. The bottom line is the politics around the Israelis and the Palestinians have shifted tremendously among Democrats, and they've shifted specifically tremendously among Democrats who are under the age of 50, younger Democrats who are Mamdani's base, and also the base of Democratic socialists like himself, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. They have just shifted more so than I think that anyone could possibly have imagined, say, 8 years ago.
Okay, so yeah, his followers or his supporters, they all scream things like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They scream things like globalize the Intifada. These are young people on college campuses. This is meant on his base, but it's also, these trust fund babies, and I'll get to that here in just a second. But back to Zohran Mamdani not being a communist. Here's a video called How Socialists Solved the Housing Crisis from 4 years ago. He says the plan is for government to buy up all the private property and turn them into communes. The streets say it's not fair to hold Zohran accountable for things that he says when he's younger. Okay, so this was a clip, and we're going to get to this. He said this when he was younger, and although it was only a few years ago. But people say that it's not fair, or when I say people say, I mean the Democrats say it's not fair to hold Zohran accountable for the things that he said in years past when he was younger, even though this video was only a few years ago. And he's running as an elected official. He wants to be an elected official. It's the same thing with Kamala Harris. Remember when Kamala Harris said things like, oh, trans inmates need to have their gender transitionings and surgery. Men should be housed with women, inmates in female prisons. And we pulled that up while Kamala Harris was running in 2024 for the presidency. And they said, oh, that's so old and she doesn't have that position anymore, yada, 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 even though it was only like a few years ago she had that position. Then all of a sudden, I guess she ran in 2024 and abandoned a lot of those positions. But he is obviously supportive of these types of policies. This was only a few years ago. Well, I'll just play the video. And look, he is talking about how he wants to buy up private property and have it become government property, turn it into communes. Take a listen.
Go further toward the Vienna model. We'll have to go beyond the market. We can establish community land trusts to gradually buy up housing on the private market and convert it to community ownership. We can give tenants a right of first refusal to buy out their landlords when buildings go up for sale. And we can fully commit to a new era of social housing, ending subsidies for luxury housing development and using our wealth to build beautiful, high-quality social housing projects that offer good homes and strong communities to everyone. We won't decommodify housing overnight, but we know what we have to do, and we have history to guide us.
Okay, so here's Zohran, again, not being a communist. This is a big deal. You've got somebody who could potentially be the mayor of this city, New York City. You wouldn't want to own property in that city. I mean, the developers, they are not going to want to own property in the city of New York if this is his policies and if he supports these types of policies. So this is something that should be taken very seriously by the voters. And it should be taken seriously by the low information voters as well. I want to share this tweet with you. This was hilarious. This was Chaz. You guys are going to get a kick out of this. So they had a farm. Okay, so they've done this before. The leftists, they've created communes. This is the last time the communists tried running their own little commune within the city. This was Chaz, Seattle. And if you'll see here, this is a very pathetic attempt at a tomato garden. They're losing their minds over trying to make these tomatoes and put these tomatoes into the ground. This is very, very sad. Very sad. I guess they threw topsoil on top of the grass. So they didn't even dig up the land, I don't think. I think they threw topsoil on top of the grass. And then they planted the tomatoes. And they just stared at it as if they were going to become ripe any minute now. These tomatoes are going to be ripe. Wait till they find out that it takes 3 months to grow kale. These liberals, they wouldn't last one day on a commune. Okay, they wouldn't last one day. So Zohran, he said this, yes, when he was a little younger, 3-4 years ago, but he's running to be an elected official. This stuff really matters because the developers in New York City are not going to want to own property in that city if he winds up being the mayor and if he's supportive of these types of policies. Why would you want to buy or have property there and then have the government buy it for bottom dollar? Now, New York City doesn't have the best track record when it comes to running and maintaining government housing. I think years of hip hop music and rap music have kind of told us that they don't have a great track record when it comes to government housing. That might be why voters of color and low-income people have actually overwhelmingly voted for Andrew Cuomo. And Zohran, his main base actually winds up being these trust fund babies, these white women. I call them wine moms. They like the potato salad with the raisins in it, and they are living in the city because mommy and daddy actually pay their rent. So the people who are actually living there, these people of color, people who are lower income, the people who are voting, those people are voting for Andrew Cuomo. Whereas Zohran, he's pulling the trust fund baby vote, is essentially what I'll say. So 95% of New York residents didn't vote, by the way, in this primary election, which is why Zohran made it out of the primary. So Zohran in the primary, 95% of them didn't vote for Zohran in the primary. It was just so low voter turnout that this guy actually has a chance now. And I mean, they are going to be pretty surprised. These 95% of New York City residents who didn't vote for the guy, they're going to be pretty surprised when they find out more about him in this election cycle. So it would explain why the media is also working overtime, by the way, for Zohran Mamdani, trying to fact check everybody who says that he's a communist. Now, is there video footage of him saying, I'm a communist? No, but like policies like this one make it pretty clear that he's a communist. In Genesis 11, I want to bring it home biblically now, needs to win. Eric Adam needs to win in November. Yeah. Commie government utopia or housing utopia sounds enticing. Yeah, these communes are going to have, I'm pretty sure, like I said, they're gonna probably have something that looks like this for your food. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't look very appetizing to me. It looks like they threw a bunch of topsoil on the ground. This was in Chad, so they've tried this before. The communists and their communes, they tried farming, and this is what their farming looks like. Really sad tomato plants. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to live in New York City on one of these communes, because all I'm probably going to get is maybe a tomato. And even that might not be a possibility. You won't get your kale, okay, because that takes 3 months to grow, and it's a very intensive plant to take care of. It requires a lot. So I want to get to Genesis 11. Bring it home biblically for you. A group of men came together in the city, and with their pride and with their plans, they declared, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Okay, so that was the Tower of Babel, Genesis 11, a monument not to God, but to man. Okay, this is what they wanted to build, the Tower of Babel. Genesis 11, let's build it. Let's make a city, the top's in the heavens, and let's make a name for ourselves. So for a time, it looked impressive. You know, the Tower of Babel, the brick went up. The leaders, got applause for doing it. The architect smiled. But then God came down, not to bless it, but to scatter it. Right. So fast forward from Babel to New York City today, where a man named Zohran Mamdani, he insists he's not a communist, by the way. He has a plan, taking private property away from people and building these communes. Okay. And he wants to replace the private property with government communes, not to serve the people, but to control them, not to glorify God, but to glorify himself and his ideology. And he says he's not a communist. He says he's a socialist, and he just wants to socialize the housing market. The state should own the land and then decide who lives under what terms. That's what socializing means. Okay, the state owns the land, and then they dictate the terms of who lives on what land. So the plan is clear. It's the same blueprint used in every fallen regime, from Venezuela to the Soviet Union. Seize the means, control the property, reshape the people. That's what, this is communist playbook right here. Take private property and turn it into government communes. God didn't create us to be cogs in a government commune. Okay, he gave us stewardship. Okay, he gave us private property. He gave us dignity to build, to own, to pass on an inheritance, by the way, and that's capitalism. Okay, and it's biblical. Capitalism is biblical. Here's what Proverbs 13:22 says: "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." You can't leave an inheritance. Think about this. Okay, biblically, capitalism is the way. Communism isn't the way. If you are a Christian and you are a socialist communist, you are acting anti-biblically. Okay, because Proverbs 13:22 says you have to leave an inheritance to be a good person, to be a good man, and you can't leave an inheritance when the state owns everything. So, bottom line, it's biblical to be a capitalist. So Zohran, he cheers this on. He's going to do rent-controlled lofts. paid for by their parents. He cheers the government communes on. Trust fund radicals, they're sipping their oat milk lattes in Brooklyn, preaching about how the third world, well, they've never even worked a third shift. Okay, these people, Zohran, all of these oat milk sipping latte idiots, really, in New York City, the people who are voting for this guy, Zohran Mamdani, they don't know what it's like to actually help people to go to foreign countries on mission trips and see what it's like in these third world countries. And they don't get to, or they don't understand. They are so far removed from the reality of the world that a lot of those third world countries are actually Venezuela, right? Those are communist nations. You're calling for the very thing that you're saying you don't want. So let's be clear. Poverty, very real. Housing challenges, very real. But God's answer is never tyranny, okay? Or tyranny, really, what they're doing is masquerading tyranny as equity. In Acts 4, the early church shared voluntarily, not under government seizure. They gave with their hearts, and they gave because their hearts were transformed, not because Caesar wrote in a new zoning law and required them to share. Okay. So they gave of their own voluntary will. So there's a difference between charity and control. One flows from love, and the other is lust from lust for power. Okay, they have a lust for power. Zohran Mamdani and these socialists who don't want to be called communists. Now, remember what happened, the Tower of Babel. God confused their language. He disrupted their grand plans, because when man tries to centralize power in defiance of God, that's what they're doing here. They're centralizing power in defiance of God. It always ends in chaos. Just ask Chaz in Seattle, right? One more time, because I think it's hilarious. That's Chaz in Seattle. That was their little commune with their, government-run housing project, kind of. It was like their own little commune, and New York, or Seattle, I think, was funding it at the time. It was during the 2020 BLM riots. And yeah, this is going to the government communes. I can tell you what it's going to look like. It's going to smell like urine, and it's going to look like broken promises. Okay, that's what the government communes are going to look like in New York City if Zohran Mamdani gets in and gets his way. The truth is, these schemes aren't new. They're just repackaged rebellion. But God sees. He sees what's going on. He raises up Daniel's in Babylonian, Joseph's in Egypt, Esther's in Persia, men and women who stand for truth, while empires around them scheme in pride. And that's what this is really all about. It's a pride project for Zohran Mamdani. So whether Zohran gets his wish or not to become the mayor of New York City, this doesn't change anything, because the lies will be exposed, the truth will be spoken for, and never trade God-given liberty for government rations of utopia, where they get to decide what you get on this government commune and what kind of food you eat and things like that. That's what's going to ultimately wind up with these government communes. So the commune walls go up, and everything else comes down, including your freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and we're going to be talking about NASCAR, because NASCAR got $5 million of your money. So we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. I'm going to take a quick break. Pure communism does not have a government. Mamdani's definitely a socialist opposed to a communist. Chaz's example shows pure communism does not work without government. Yeah, so I don't know. I would be shocked to find out. Mamdani, I think that he is serious about these government shifts, and like with the power of the office, with the mayoral office, you could see a straight up just government control takeover communism. I see what you're saying here, though. Pure communism doesn't work without government. So, for example, Chaz, They did have some government funding, but it wasn't nearly to a degree that Zohran would have at his disposal as the New York mayor. So that's what's kind of scary. Chaz kind of popped up as a protest group, and they were in Seattle, and then they created like this little commune. They were growing these stupid little tomato plants, right? And they got some funding from Seattle, but the city of Seattle didn't go in and shut it down. They propped it up a little bit, but it wasn't government approved. Now, pure communism doesn't work without the help of government dollars. Now, Zohran, he's seeking an elected office, one of the highest elected offices I think he could get in this nation outside of the presidency and outside of a gubernatorial position. This is a very major, a major city in America. So he's not running for dog catcher. I think he's really serious about using government at his disposal, really using taxpayer cash to facilitate a communist utopia. And that's just one thing that Chaz didn't have. Now, communism never works. We understand that. But communism, there's a goal of communism, and that 100% works. Look at places like Venezuela, where the government is backing communism. That's where it starts to get really scary. That happened to a degree in Chaz, but not nearly to the degree that I think it would happen under a Zohran Mamdani New York mayorship, mayor when he gets the position. All right, we're going to be right back. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hold on just 1 second. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, the show that cuts through the noise with claws out truth and unapologetic common sense. I'm your host, Kat. No fluff, just facts. Today, we're tackling the topic mainstream media would rather tiptoe around, and that's abortion, its history, its turning point, and what's happening now and where it's headed. Let's start with the past. In 1973, the Supreme Court handed down Roe v. Wade, and just like that, abortion became legal nationwide. It wasn't voted on. It wasn't in the Constitution. It was judicial activism, plain and simple. And over the next 49 years, over 60 million unborn lives were lost under this illusion that it was just healthcare, or that this is just healthcare. Fast forward to the game changer, June 24th, 2022. Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. The court finally corrected course, overturned Roe, and returned the power back to the states. Cue the media meltdown. But guess what? That's what democracy looks like. Local, real control. Right now, it's a state-by-state battle. Red states are passing laws to protect unborn life, some with heartbeat bills, others with total bans. Blue states, on the other hand, are sprinting forward, abortion on demand, some even pushing abortion access up until birth. That's not progressive, that's extreme. And here's where it gets even messier. Abortion pills. The latest front in this fight. The FDA greenlit mail-order abortion pills with almost no oversight. Think about that. A teenager can get these powerful drugs sent to her door without even seeing a doctor. Safe? Hardly. But the Biden administration, they were all in, treating abortion like it's the crown jewel of their social agenda. What's next? The future of abortion is being written right now. The state legislatures, in the courts, and in the culture, and at the ballot box. Conservatives are stepping up, passing strong protections, supporting crisis pregnancy centers, promoting adoption reform, and standing firm with both the mother and the child. Here's the bottom line. The fight isn't over. It's just begun, and we're no longer playing defense, though. We're shaping the culture. One law, one vote, and one voice at a time. This has been Conservative Cat Clips, where the truth cuts deep and the values stand tall, and we don't apologize for standing up for life. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I do want to give you this statistic really quick. Over 80 people were shot, 14 killed in Chicago over the 4th of July weekend. This is a complete war zone. So sad. And that brings me to today's story. So this weekend marked the third year of NASCAR's 3-year contract racing downtown Chicago through downtown Chicago. So, this is a city where carjackings are up. Schools are very disturbingly not successful. Kids can't read at grade level or do math. Your Ford F-150 could get swallowed up by a pothole. Okay, and the powers be decided that hosting a high-speed stock car race was in the middle of one of the most congested, crime-ridden areas, bureaucratically bloated cities in America. They thought that that would be a good idea. So we're talking about NASCAR. We're talking about NASCAR in downtown Chicago. Now, let's break it down. Mayor Brandon Johnson said everything is equity. Mayor Brandon Johnson said, there's hope in our economy right now. This is a quote from Mayor Brandon Johnson. There's hope in our economy. And he wouldn't give a straight answer on whether NASCAR would be back next year. But let's be real. When does Mayor Brandon Johnson ever give a straight answer? He said that there's real hope in our economy right now. Are you going to be kidding me right now? If hope is measured by boarded up businesses, 80 people shot, 14 people killed over just this past weekend, mass migration out of control, out-migration out of Illinois is out of control. People are leaving the state. People are leaving that city in droves. Public schools are focused on pronouns rather than performance, academic performance. But sure, Mayor, everything's revving up. The economy is booming right now. There's real hope in the economy. Give me a break, dude. Okay, so the state of Illinois, land of Lincoln, is now the land of lunacy. I would say it's not even Illinois, it's Pritzkerstan. They allocated $5 million of taxpayer funds to go to this little NASCAR thing over the weekend, and their operating expenses, that's what they used the $5 million for NASCAR. So let me say that again really slowly. $5 million of your money for barriers, security, city staffing, other logistics involved with shutting down a massive portion of the downtown area so millionaires can drive around in a circle and vendors can sell $20 nachos. So mind you, this is the same Illinois that is drowning in debt, $140 billion in pension debt. We just passed a $55.2 billion budget, packed with woke pet projects, free college for illegal immigrants, probably climate equity task force. And you just imagine it, they put it in there. Okay, the $55.2 billion budget. So meanwhile, there's a perfectly good track. Now, I'm actually from this area, the Chicagoland Speedway out in Joliet. It's perfectly fine. It sits empty. It's dusty. It's forgotten. It's neglected. And between 2001 and 2019, Joliet was the home for 94 NASCAR races. Okay, this is a real track. There's real fans. This is real racing. Chicago, I mean, those urban people don't even really appreciate racing as much as, us corn folk do, right? In central Illinois. Joliet's just outside of Chicago. It's like 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes. But it's going to draw a lot of those smaller communities, corn type communities, farming communities, the people who would actually appreciate NASCAR. The people who, these are people who wouldn't go to Chicago and risk their lives in this war zone. Like I said, 80 people shot over the weekend. That's insanity. They're not going to go risk their lives to go watch it in Chicago. Now, the drivers have talked about how much they miss doing the race in Joliet. Ryan Blaney, last year's Cup Series champ, he said that he hated to see it go. Chicagoland Speedway. Justin Allgaier, he's a Springfield native. He said that he had fond memories and even made his Cup debut there. So why abandon this purpose-built speedway to burn rubber on the pothole-riddled streets next to Lollapalooza tents and heroin needles? Why abandon this Chicagoland Speedway? One word, optics. Okay, the left, all they care about is optics. And they care about what looks good on a press release. So NASCAR downtown, it makes for a great aerial shot, tourism, they can say that it boosts tourism, city pride, inclusivity, all the buzzwords, right? And they throw that all in their press releases, and it's all about optics. But here's the problem. You don't fix Chicago's image by, papering over the broken parts with taxpayer funded circuses. Okay, really, that's what they're doing. They're press releasing, issuing all these press releases, and they're covering up. It's like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole wound. You're throwing a Band-Aid on this bullet hole wound with taxpayer funded circuses, this $5 million for the Chicago race. You fix a city by restoring law and order, enforcing the law, incentivizing businesses, and upholding the truth. Okay, bringing NASCAR downtown does not do a damn thing to fix carjackings. The 80 people shot over this past weekend, Mayor. Come on, okay. This is we got to talk about real solutions in Chicago, and if Illinois truly wants to build its economy and support fans and families, okay, it reopened the Chicagoland Speedway. It's already there. The infrastructure's already built. We'd host races on, real sports at real sports centers, not inject high octane entertainment into crime zones. Okay, for 3 days, and we ignore the other 362 days of the year, and we inject this, entertainment into Chicago. Now, what does Scripture teach us? Scripture teaches us in Luke 16, verse 10, he who is faithful with least, with what is least, is faithful with also much. So if the city leaders can't be trusted to maintain public safety, public infrastructure, get our kids reading at grade level, if they can't be trusted with that, then why are we spending millions on NASCAR street barricades? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That's not stewardship, it's showboating. And it's time we call it out. I would say, here's what we do. We open up the Chicagoland Speedway. Not just here in America. Taxpayers wouldn't want... I just don't think taxpayers would want to fund NASCAR. I don't think that they'd want to do that. Okay. Especially not in war zones. Whereas, there are real racetracks out there. And those real racetracks are currently rotting away in cornfields. That Chicagoland Speedway that I'm talking about. So leaders wouldn't lie about economic hope in a biblical America. Brandon Johnson is clearly lying about this economic hope, and his policies are causing families and businesses to flee from not only the city, but the state. So in a sane America, NASCAR would be for fans, not for politicians to play with. So NASCAR in Chicago, it's a complete photo op. It's not a plan. Real racing belongs on real tracks, like in Joliet. That's just sitting there. $5 million of taxpayer dollars was a slap in the face to working families. Why are we paying for this when you guys can't even do basic public safety and keep people from getting shot? 80 of them over the weekend, by the way. Mayor Brandon Johnson is more interested in optics than outcomes. Good stewardship starts with the truth. The truth is that they're not doing well economically. Chicago, Illinois, we're not doing well. And I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the facility requirements based on sex act in Florida. So there's a transgender influencer. You probably have seen this person, very popular on social media. He goes into women's bathrooms, number one. He also, I've seen him on TikTok. He will sit in a chair and get super upset with dining staff if they misgender him. But he also doesn't make really that much of an effort to look like a woman. So it's very possible to misgender him. But he gets all upset when people misgender him on TikTok. So he's pretty famous on TikTok. So the Florida Attorney General is now launching an investigation into this individual because he filmed himself going into female bathrooms. I'll be right back with that. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I appreciate you being here. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel, get into some of your chats. Send me a chat if you've got any questions about today's show. Brandon Johnson is very lost on what his city wants / needs. Yes, all very, very lost. His city really needs what they truly need is once they fix the public school system, I think that a lot of it just kind of fixes itself. If they were to fix, it's the Chicago Teachers Union, it's the unions, they're controlling the city there. And if they were to shut down the union's power, I think that things would start to fall into place there. But the schools are just a mess. So once you get the schools under control and you get your kids reading, writing, and doing math at grade level, at least, they would be contributing members of society and not participating in these teen takeovers. We need to get discipline back in schools. I don't know. I think that it's a lost cause at this point, though, if you've got the Chicago Teachers Union running it, because really what these public schools have become, it's a place for people to line their pockets, for them to line their pockets with all kinds of cash, and whether it be pensions or salaries, whatever the case may be. And they're just a lobbying group at that point. They're not really in it for the kids. And what's going on in Chicago, the 80 people shot over the weekend, 14 dead, just this past weekend. I think what's going on there is really our youth is completely lost. If they had some discipline and some adult direction in their lives, I think that it would go a long way. So yeah, Brandon Johnson is very lost, has no idea what his city wants / needs. I don't know. Sometimes I chalk it up to negligence. Other times I chalk it up to, is this really what they want? Is like their Democrat communist utopia? Maybe they're doing all of this on purpose, and it's intentional to create chaos. And really, at the expense of everybody else, they're making all kinds of money. The Chicago Teachers Union then turns around, donates to people just like Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. So it's really corrupt there, and I don't know if there's any hope. So I love how leftists are obsessed with tax-funded everything, and that's usually privately funded. Yeah, with NASCAR, usually that stuff is privately funded, and like this is what makes me so mad. Like $5 million, it's a lot. It's a lot, and we shouldn't have paid for it at all. It is small in the grand scheme of things. Like I said, our budget just this past year was $55 billion. So that's what they'll say. They'll say, oh, it's small in the grand scheme of things. But if you keep saying that, so for example, Chris Welch's district, he just had a sports complex go up. It was like $40 million. And then you have this $5 million. And these are just things that nobody really needs at all. There's things that like are wants, but then there's things that just nobody would really need at all or want. I don't think that anybody is really calling for NASCAR to be taxpayer funded, for there to be races here in the state of Illinois to be taxpayer funded. And I don't know, it's this weird ideology that people have in government that they think that they have to draw in people via tourism. And I am of the belief that that is not really necessarily your job. If you were to keep taxes low for everybody, then there would be no reason why people would leave your community, and then you would have that tax base and you'd be able to upkeep basic infrastructure. Okay, but they're of the belief that they're in the business of tourism and they want as much tax base as they can get, as many people as they can get in their communities, so they can tax you and spend it on all kinds of stupid, frivolous type stuff. Your community, and you should be looking at this if you live in Bloomington, they've got the Bloomington Public Library, the Aquatic Center, all of these types of wants, and they fund these things over your basic infrastructure, like your consolidated sewer system, your water, your lake source water, transitioning off of that. They don't focus on any of that stuff, but they focus on all of the wants over the needs. And if you live in one of those communities, I suggest you move. Find a community that prioritizes the basic public infrastructure, and then if you want to do a tourism-y type thing, then they spend on that if there's extra funding. If there's no extra funding, and I'm almost of the belief where you shouldn't do any of that stuff. So I think here in Logan County, they had purchased like some watermelon benches. When we all know that you could always dump more money into basic infrastructure like your water system and like your roads, and the roads aren't perfect here, right? And the sidewalks and things like that. You could definitely do more when it comes to your basic infrastructure before purchasing like watermelon benches for a community, like to try to draw tourists here on Route 66. It's stupid. And they're just being financially irresponsible with their dollars. And that's what it is. They've been financially irresponsible for decades. Now they're trying to entice people to come to their communities so that way they can take their money, their taxpayer money. But they still aren't being good stewards of that money because once they get more people here, and then they tax you more, and then they wind up paying for things like watermelon benches or Bloomington Public Library to the tune of $25 million or something in the year of 2024, 2023 is maybe when they did that. We have cell phones. Why the hell are we spending that much money on a public library? It's dumb. So, all right, let's get to the discussion of the Florida Attorney General. He says, looking forward to discussion of appointed Florida Attorney General James Utheimer. He faces the voters next year. Governor Ron DeSantis appointed his co-S to backfill AG Ashley Moody. I don't know a whole lot about the inner workings of what's going on there politically. I do know that he's in this election cycle and he has really been trying to make a name for himself, this attorney general in Florida. He went after and he did this whole entire investigation. It was a very involved investigation where they found thousands of Florida DMV workers who were taking bribes. In exchange, they were providing CDLs to illegal immigrants. So this was an investigation that was conducted by his office and other law enforcement agencies. This was a big deal, so he did a presser on that. He also has been making appearances on the Benny Johnson show. So we're going to get to that because he's kind of making a name for himself here, the Florida Attorney General. It's because he's running for something. Oh, Chief of Staff. Okay, got it. I was like, I don't know. Okay, Chief of Staff. So Governor Ron DeSantis appointed his Chief of Staff to backfill AG Ashley Moody, who was appointed to the U.S. Senate. Got it. Yeah. So, I'm really interested to see where he goes politically. I really like the guy. I think that Florida Attorney General, he's running for this spot. I think that he probably is eyeing something bigger than that, whether that's, Congress or, some sort of gubernatorial race. If Ron DeSantis were to, run for the presidency at some point, would the Florida Attorney General be a natural successor? I think so. I like this guy a lot. I have yet to see anything that he's done that I haven't just completely been impressed by. So whether that's Alligator Alcatraz, the CDL thing, or now this. So the facility requirements based on Sex Act mandates that individuals must use restrooms, locker rooms, and changing facilities that correspond with their sex. That is the law in the state of Florida. That means that despite your feelings deep down, way down inside, I don't care what your pronouns are. I don't demand what you want the world to affirm. It doesn't matter. If you're a man, you have to go and use a men's restroom. If you're a woman, you're going to go and use the women's restroom in the state of Florida. So it turns out this transgender TikToker, who you guys might know, I've seen this person several times, Lily Tino. Apparently this transgender TikTok influencer did not get the memo that this facility requirements based on Sex Act is law, and he brazenly filmed himself inside of a woman's restroom. And I don't know about you, but that's really sort of creepy. Take a listen. Here we go.
Point of why I do what I do, which is create content, is to educate and to entertain, in that order. And I think that recently my content has taken a bit of a shift to be more, I'm hurt. I am deeply hurt because of the amount of hate that I've gotten over the past 3 years doing this, 2.5 years. And that hurt has influenced the way that I do things as a content creator, especially as a streamer. I'm always on camera, talking all the time, daily updates about where I'm at. And I think that the hurt that I feel has influenced the way that I've pushed in my content to be confrontational and be in your face about what I'm trying to do, which is ultimately teach people about trans things, and hopefully make for a more accepting world. But I don't want the hurt to be a part of it anymore.
Okay, so there's that. There's that. Sorry about that. My microphone was down a little. There's that clip. So essentially, he says that he's going to be stepping away from his social media. Let's take a listen to James Utheimer, and I don't know if he's running for. I'd imagine he's running for election for the Florida Attorney General. I got to look this up more. I'm glad you brought this up. So yeah, the U.S. Senate seat, it was backfilled by Governor Ron DeSantis' chief of staff, Attorney General Ashley Moody. So then that seat was open, and then they appointed James Utheimer. So we'll have to see if he's going to be running for re-election. There is a 2026 Florida Attorney General election that's going to take place on November 3rd, 2026. So let's get to this clip. This was of Benny Johnson and James Utheimer on his show, and they were talking about this individual because this individual had brazenly filmed himself going into a female's restroom, and I don't have that clip because it's been taken down, and it was hard to find that clip again, but there were a lot of people in the background. So he went into the women's restroom, and there were a lot of women in the background, and that's only something a creep would do, by the way. So the Florida Attorney General James Utheimer has launched an investigation into that video that was posted by the trans influencer Lily Tino. The footage filmed inside of the women's restroom at Disney World, and it was called Bathroom Tea. That's what he titled the video. Quickly made its rounds on the interweb, sparked backlash. A lot of people have taken this down. I think might be a clip here, and I'm going to try to find it, but there were several women's faces captured in this video, and they were in the background, and they were captured without the consent of those people. So very disgusting. And I love how he pretends like he's the victim here. Like he says, oh, I'm taking a step back from social media. Okay, dude, you are not the victim. Okay, you brazenly filmed women. And this guy, he continues to go to, and he's just does very mean things to people when he's out in public. So he'll be dining at some place, and if they misgender him, then he's just outright mean to that individual who misgenders him. Although you haven't made much of an attempt to look like a woman, so it's very easy to do. But let's take a listen to this clip. Here we go. Here's Benny Johnson and James Utheimer.
Really quickly, we have a friend, lives with TikTok, and she wanted us to ask a question about something that was going on that's very strange here in the state of Florida. Now, I know that DeSantis versus Disney is one of the hotter topics of the last couple of years. You ended up winning that brawl straight away. And I don't think Disney's functioned ever better, actually, quite frankly. A lot of things are changing in that area and region, and it's for the better, right? Sure. Universal just opened this massive new park. I've been there, but a lot of cool stuff going on there. A lot of big dynamic energy in Orlando. Tying through to what you just announced this morning about child trafficking, tying through to predation, right, of vulnerable peoples here in the state of Florida. There was a TikTok influencer named Lily Tino, who is who's taking videos and photos inside of the women's bathroom in Disney. And I'm thinking, well, wait a second. There's no way that this can be legal in the state of Florida, right? This is a transgender influencer. This seems to be like, first off, like you shouldn't be allowed to like film inside of bathrooms. It seems really creepy. But then here in Disney, it's like extra layers of creepy and wrong. Is there anything happening from a state level on this topic?
Yeah, we're investigating this. We do not tolerate men or boys and women's and girls, restrooms, gyms, private spaces, no tolerance. We're investigating this one. We've already cracked down on some gyms in South Florida. They were allowing people that identify as women to go into women's locker rooms. We put them on notice that legal action was coming. Thankfully, they changed their ways. Alachua County, a public school system, they had a camp, Camp Crystal Lake, where they were allowing fifth grade elementary age boys to identify as girls and stay in the girls' bunks. We shut this down right away too. Thankfully, they did not fight us on it. It's amazing we have to have these conversations today. But here in Florida, we believe there are two sexes, men and women, and we are going to protect our girls at all costs.
So there you have it. Love that guy. I don't know. I haven't found anything that he's officially running. So it's supposed to be November of 2026. Maybe he hasn't officially announced yet, but he should be running for re-election for Attorney General. He was appointed to that position. Tino, he is an insufferable person. And we should not condone his behavior. And a lot of the people on the left don't even really like this guy. Take a listen to this transgender TikToker who calls out Lily Tino, this other trans TikToker, and calls for the LGBTQ community to unfollow him, saying she's a detriment to our community. This person is not very nice on social media, just in general. I would say like one of the meanest people on social media. He goes and he purposefully like tries to get people to misgender him, and then he blows up on them. I've seen his videos everywhere all the time. So let's take a look. Here we go. Sorry about that, guys. Hold on. I think I lost sound. Can you guys hear me okay? Test, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I lost sound there. That was odd. Some technical difficulties. I will just summarize for you. So that was a trans TikToker. You can hear me okay. So let me try to play it one more time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play it. Here we go.
Do this because this is affecting all of us in the LGBTQ community. Anyone who still follows Lily Tino, just stop on any social media platform. I know I don't have a big following on here. I don't care. As a member of the trans community, she is a detriment to our community. She has not learned her lesson after so many people have tried to inform her about these things. And she continues to make content that not only rage baits transphobes, homophobes, right-wingers, conservatives, just any of those people, but it also rage baits us too. And she should not be making any kind of money, because at this point in time, she is someone who is causing more harm to our community and making us look even worse than we already look in the eyes of people who don't like us. So stop following her. Just stop. I didn't want.
So yeah, this individual is just a like really mean person, and even the people on the left, people within the transgender community, don't even really like Lily Tino, because he's very obnoxious and he tries to rage bait not only both the right and but also the left. So Tino does the trans community no favors, obviously, and I don't know. I can't believe that he goes in and he videotapes these women without their consent in these bathrooms. I mean, it's super creepy. So, according to Florida's Voice, the caption of the video read, honestly, I was pretty worried at first because Florida isn't known for being inclusive to trans people, but overall, it was a really great experience. So he goes to Disney, he goes into these bathrooms, but the AG has launched an investigation into this guy specifically. Several photos and videos show the faces of other women, which many viewers deemed a serious invasion of privacy. Yeah, critics accused Tino of being insensitive for posting these images without the regard for the individuals who were depicted, leading to widespread calls of accountability. In response to the escalating criticism, an online petition was actually launched demanding that Disney ban this guy, ban Lily Tino from its parks and pursue legal action. So Tino claimed his goal was to create a more accepting world. Why is it that I must bend the knee and affirm your delusions in order for this to be an accepting world? Okay, we can respect each other, but you can also not be in my private space as a female. Okay, so he says that he is stepping down from TikTok now because he's tired of the backlash. In reality, he's frustrated that the unwoke mob or the unwoke masses will not bend the knee to the woke mob and affirm his delusions. And that's why he's frustrated and upset. He's leaving TikTok because we won't bend the knee. The unwoke people will not bend the knee to this guy. And he parades around. He openly mocks women. He films them without their consent in bathrooms. I don't know about you, but that's extremely misogynistic. Filming women in bathrooms. I mean, that's just so sick. So as of today, I looked at the petition. It's over 15,000 signatures, 15,260 signatures. And something tells me that it's going to gain even more traction. And I would love to see this guy banned from Disneyland or Disney World. Disneyland's in California. Disney World is in Florida. I'd love to see this guy banned and further, I'd love to see him prosecuted. I think there's like a $5,000 fine or something like that if you enter a female space that doesn't correspond with your sex. If you're found in violation of what's called the Facility Requirements Based on Sex Act. So that's something in Florida. So there is punishment for that, at least to some degree. And I hope that the AG conducts an investigation and comes up with a solution. Fortunately, many officials in Florida aren't playing along with this nonsense. Tino, he thought that he had special privileges, the special privileges of making people uncomfortable and not being held accountable for that. That's really what transgender people really like to do, is make people uncomfortable. He specifically is really all about that because he wants to get people who misgender him and then like tell them that they misgendered him. And it's really like, it's all about like making people uncomfortable, which is classic predator behavior. And it's like bullying tactics. And it's abusive, where people will go and try to get you to feel uncomfortable. And they like doing that. So that's an issue that I think that a lot of people, even in his own community, are seeing with his content, where he puts out videos just solely to make people uncomfortable. And we should be here for it, for his possible prosecution. There is an investigation going on because at the end of the day, his downfall is completely self-inflicted. And, I don't feel bad at all for him taking down his social media. It should be taken down and he should be arrested. He's filming women without their consent in private spaces. He's belittling people in public. And I mean, making them feel uncomfortable. And he thinks that he's entitled to that. And that's not That's not fair to anybody. And this is just what I'm seeing. Okay, I'm just seeing it. My opinion of his TikToks, and a lot of the people in transgender communities believe this to be true as well, is that he's a very big problem for the transgender community because of his behavior and his demeanor and the way he presents himself in these videos is just trying to make people uncomfortable. So we'll see what happens. All right. Now let's go and shift gears here. I do want to get to a few other things. I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hit the subscribe button right now. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I appreciate you. I hope that you had a fantastic weekend. If you missed our Independence Day show, you're going to want to go check that out because we talked about the forgotten heroes of the American Revolution. One more story, and then I'm going to leave you for the day. But you are going to want to subscribe and come back tomorrow. It's bright and early every morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. It's a daily show, Conservative Cat. Find me on social media. Find me on TikTok. Activists, they stage a funeral for Harry Potter in the bookstore. So in a bookstore, they are protesting J.K. Rowling for thinking trans women are men. J.K. Rowling, I mean, not a conservative by any means. She just holds the belief that, like, hey, 80% of other people, you know, it's an 80-20 issue. Most people believe that, hey, trans men probably shouldn't, or trans women, aka men dressed up as women, probably shouldn't be going into female spaces like bathrooms and things like that. So she holds this belief, but they say, quote, "This franchise is funding our oppression." This is what one trans activist said, along with a bunch of other lunatics that were there, by the way. They decided to hold a funeral for Harry Potter, based on these Harry Potter books. Okay, and this was an attempt to protest J.K. Rowling. Transgender activists in the UK held a mock funeral for Harry Potter inside a local bookstore, using the event to cry about things, by the way, that don't exist. That they are, you know, being attacked via genocide, and that they are being oppressed by the funding that J.K. Rowling generates via the revenue from these books. None of this is, there's no shred of evidence to suggest that these people are oppressed. Take a listen.
Friend who is now gone. It was really important to me. This franchise is funding our oppression. The lady who wrote this magical story, this wonderful story, who when we were children meant everything to us, it's now harming us. And when we buy these products, we pay for our own harm. So we're here today as a group to forget our friends, who must now be forgotten.
But today I would like to take a moment to talk about allyship. You don't get to be an ally to a marginalized community in the way that you feel like it. You must do so in the way that they have asked and communicated is actually helpful. You cannot buy J.K. Rowling products and claim to support trans people. Being an ally means to lose something, or at the very least, standing to lose something. If you cannot even lose a book, or a movie, or a TV show, while trans people are losing their rights and their lives, you are not an ally.
It seems fitting that we are gathered in what could be seen as a temple to literature. This extraordinary store. It has so many books. So please, everybody, read another book.
Witchcraft is about liberation. It's about freedom. It's about equality. It's a movement to fight against oppression.
All right, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sick and tired of all that. I don't know why he, they, she, they, z, zems. I don't know why they all look like that. That one looks just like who is it from the Suicide? What is it called? Suicide something. It's a DC character. Now I'm not thinking. I don't know. I'm not really great on pop culture. If you guys like this individual with the blue pigtails, he's dressing up as somebody, and I don't know the cartoon character's name or the character's name. She's like in a relationship with the Joker. The DC, throw it in the comment section. Okay, so they're saying Rowling is funding their oppression. What? So I scoured the entire internet and I did not find where, Rowling is transphobic in any way. All I found is that, hey, yeah, she takes the position that trans women are men, like 80% of the country does. So there's very little evidence to back up what they're claiming here. To back up what they're crying about is that they're oppressed. I don't see how they're oppressed because I'm not seeing any kind of ordinance that says that, hey, trans people cannot. At least this happened in the UK. I mean, the UK, the United States, these are two countries that bend over backwards for the trans community. Now, if they were complaining about this in a nation like Iran, yeah, then I'd say, okay, sure. Oppression exists of trans people in those countries. Not in the UK, not in the United States. So there's nothing more frustrating than a group of people who are coming together, claiming to be oppressed when they're able to go to this bookstore, host this really weird like funeral for Harry Potter books. And then they're demanding that you don't buy them. They're demanding you to be an ally, and that allyship is, based on their terms. So this goes beyond, I would say, first world issues. They couldn't sound more spoiled if they tried. There they are in a bookstore with all these books, and they're hosting a funeral for a book character in this country, in this local bookstore. And I don't know why these people say they're being harmed, because all of the statistics, they say transgenocide is a thing. All of the statistics show that transgenocide is not a thing. There's very, very small number of transgender individuals who are killed via homicide. And of those, a lot of that is like drug dealers who are killing each other, prostitutes, pimps killing their prostitutes, things like that. That's what's really going on in the transgender community. If you want to talk about the murders and the homicides, which there's not even a whole lot of them to begin with within the community. So that one individual, she says, a marginalized community, you don't get to pick if you're an ally or not. So according to the internet, a marginalized community refers to a group of people who are excluded by mainstream society due to social, economic, political, or cultural factors. Now, call me crazy, but these people don't seem to be excluded from anything. They seem to be included in everything. So much so that they get special treatment. They get to host a funeral inside of a local bookstore and get to speak about how, they're not treated well. So, I mean, what? And you're not marginalized. I don't know. Go off, I guess. She says that being an ally means standing to lose something. I don't know what that means, to lose something, like not purchasing a Harry Potter book because purchasing a Harry Potter book is somehow going to contribute to your oppression. That's what they're saying. They're saying like, oh, these allies need to stop purchasing these books because it's contributing to our oppression. How is it contributing to your oppression? Give me evidence. Okay, J.K. Rowling has a position and holds a political, or not even a political, just an ideological belief, and somehow funding the franchise is contributing to your oppression just because she has a belief that doesn't correlate with yours or doesn't correspond with your belief. I mean, I don't get it. I'm so tired of these people complaining about supposedly losing their rights in the Western world and in the UK, right? They're saying, oh, we're losing our rights. But there's countries where these people are actually, like, if you were to come out transgender in a place like Iran, try that. You'd be killed. You'd be thrown off a rooftop. And these are the same types of people who jump on the pro-Hamas bandwagon, and they'd never be safe in those types of countries. The Iran and these terrorist-funded countries. No, they'd never be safe. So it's totally ridiculous to claim that this franchise is contributing to your oppression when you're not oppressed. To show me the evidence of, did J.K. Rowling take the money and donate it to a local group that goes and hunts down trans people and kills them? No, like that's outrageous. Oh gosh. Look, these people aren't buying Harry Potter books anymore. Did you care? Let me know in the comment section. I'll see you guys tomorrow, bright and early. Harley Quinn, thank you. Yes, this person is dressed up as Harley Quinn. That's it. I appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. Bye-bye. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m.